Hello, everyone. Welcome to an APH Virtual Excel Academy. We are so happy to have you with us today. Today, we have our second man camp. Hope you're ready. This is meant for our little bit older students, but everyone is welcome. Even the ladies, you're welcome to stick around. We are glad to have you. I'll say it again. Welcome to the APH Virtual Excel Academy. Today is Man Camp. And we have Alex Fabrega. Did I say it right? Hopefully I did. Perfect. We have him back again to make you really think about prepping for the world. Okay. Hi, Nikki. Glad to have you. Hello, Donnie. I see you out there as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to you, Alex. They are all yours.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So glad to be talking to everyone again about what it takes as you're becoming an older man. So this is aimed at kind of end of middle school up through high school. But again, this information could be valuable to anybody. So feel free to stay. All right. Let me share my screen. There we go. Start at 1. All righty, Man Camp. Today we are here for Man Camp. What is going to happen, what you should do, and some tips and tricks to make becoming a man a little bit easier. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Get this out of the way. All righty, our learning objectives for today, pretty similar to last time if you were here for that. Each student will be able to identify one person in their life they can go to learn more about for our topics today. And our second learning objective is that each student will find at least one thing they can do to make growing up into a man a little bit easier. We're going to start with what we started with last time, personal maintenance. All right, anyone that was there last time, or even if you weren't, can you give me a quick reminder on what personal maintenance means? Chandler says he thinks it is about taking care of yourself. All right, Chandler. Anybody else have any particular ideas about what personal maintenance means? Nikki said taking care of your body, totally. Zach says it is being ready to go out. Those are all great ideas. Donnie said showering. Thank you, Donnie. You remembered from last time I talked about how important showering is. Totally, Donnie, you're on it, bud. Personal maintenance is all about taking care of your body, and it's not so much health, as in are you eating well and exercising, as much as it is how are you presenting yourself. And the first thing we're talking about is smell. And Donnie hit the nail on the head for the first one. Most important thing is that shower. And when I say every day, I mean every day. At this age, you may even want to take a shower twice a day. Once when you get up and then once again before you go to bed. It'll completely depend on you, but that shower is absolutely critical. Deodorant. Last time I said that deodorant might be an option at your age, but if you are in our target audience of middle school to high school, deodorant, I'm afraid, is no longer an option. Deodorant is mandatory. Every talked about wearing clean socks and clean underwear because we don't want that smell coming out either. Your smell is oftentimes one of the first thing a person notices about you. So being in charge of that smell will keep you good. Looks like my internet froze for a second, but it looks like I am back now. Thank you for telling me I froze, Nikki. So smell, we take care of our smell. Your appearance, that is another very important thing. What does your appearance mean to you? I don't just mean what does the word appearance mean, but what value do you hold on your appearance? And what things do you need to be concerned about? It's just like last time, we're going to talk about your hairstyle. Doesn't mean it has to be some super fancy, complicated, comb it one way, gel it one way sort of thing. It just has to be intentional. Your hair has to be something that you do consistently. And your clothes, are they clean? Do they fit? And do they match? Are you presenting yourself visually the way you want to be presenting yourself? Big question here, why does it matter? Why does the way you smell matter? Why does the way you look matter? Does it matter? Raise my hand.
We have a hand, Alex. This is Robin. Oh, our hand has disappeared. So maybe somebody else did not want to speak.
It was my hand. That may have been me.
Oh, how funny, everybody. I was about to tell Alex that Alex wanted to talk. So that worked out. Back to you, Alex.
Yeah, we're good. Okay, so Donnie said, so you don't stink. Totally. Nikki said, why? Do you mean that as a question? Or maybe you meant it was an accidental type? Chandler says it matters because he hears people talk about it at school. All right, those are all definitely true. Donnie, I like yours. You're always straight to the point, Donnie. I appreciate that. Why does it matter is because other people notice. And then other people may notice that kid over there doesn't smell very good. And you don't want to be next to someone who doesn't smell very good. Zach says he wants friends. It's a lot easier to make friends if you smell good and you keep track of your appearance. So it is a very important, you like me too, Donnie, thank you very much. It's just an important way to fit into our modern society. Unfortunately, we are no longer cavemen and can't pretend we don't have to worry about our smell anymore. So it definitely matters. Who can you go to talk about these things if you have more questions about it? So these are a very similar list from what we had last time. Your parents, your siblings, and I want to remind you one more time to be careful with your siblings. I have 2 siblings myself. I love them both very much, but that does not mean that we were best of friends and the most trustworthy confidants when we were young. So if you want to get advice from your siblings, make sure that they're helping. Mateo said, hey, Alex, how you doing? I'm doing well, Mateo. How are you? Glad that you joined us. You could talk to your mom. Oh, Nikki, you meant Y for yes when we were talking about appearance. Okay, thank you for the correction. And you could also talk to your friends about these things. If they're real friends, they'll be honest and they'll say, hey man, you kind of stink, or hey man, you got to go fix up your hair a little bit. Zach says he can talk to his teacher. Yes, a good teacher will absolutely be honest with you about these things. Now, what is going to change? We touched on this last time, but body odor. As you get older, you start to smell more. That is just kind of a fact of adolescence. As you are producing more hormones, those hormones produce a smell. And in one of the vicious cycles of life, the stress hormone, cortisol, produces a lot of that BO smell. And being stressed might make you more nervous, which might make you produce more cortisol, which might make you more stressed because you smell worse. You might start to see that cycle. So taking care of that smell early with deodorant can be a huge help. What else might start changing is facial hair, boys. You might start growing some mustaches, might start growing some beards. Now, this is an important note that I needed someone to sit me down and talk about when I was a young man. Just because you can grow facial hair does not mean it is good facial hair. Just because you got a little something above your lip or a little something on your chin does not mean it's a real good beard or mustache. A lot of times when you're younger, shaving is the best way to go to keep your appearance looking clean. Just because you got a little facial hair does not mean it is good facial hair. I walked around with the dumbest little baby mustache at the top of my lip for months when I could first grow one because I was so excited that I could grow a little mustache. But that's another thing. Ask someone you can trust. Is this good facial hair, or maybe it's time to go? Acne. You might start breaking out with acne. I'm talking zits, I'm talking pimples, whiteheads, blackheads. There's all sorts of things that can happen to your face. So it might be time to start washing it daily. And I'm not just talking about when you're in the shower, wiping water on it or wiping your body wash on it. I mean, getting a particularly designed acne product meant to cleanse your face of oils to help prevent acne. And since we're talking about growing hair and we're talking about acne, actually, we'll pause for 1 second to answer Chandler's question. Chandler wants to know, how do you know if you have acne? Well, you might be able to feel it tactually. If you feel your face and notice that you have little bumps that you may not have had earlier, that might be acne. Sometimes that acne might sting also to touch, and it might be extra oily. And you could also talk to one of those trusted people, like your friends, your family, or your teacher. Zach says you can also get acne on your back. That is true. Bacne is not a joke. Nikki says that acne feels like Braille dots. Yeah, that's true. It does kind of feel like that. So we're talking about facial hair. We're talking about acne. That brings us to a conversation that no young people like to have. We are talking about puberty. That super fun word that makes everybody nervous and awkward. But we're going to have an easy, nice, scientific, and direct conversation about this. And please feel free to ask any questions if you have them. So, what is puberty? Can anyone give me a nice personal definition of what the word puberty means? Zach says puberty means growing up. Totally. Nikki said when your voice changes. Chandler says he actually doesn't know much about it. Thank you for your honesty, Chandler. Means growing up. It is the physical change from being a boy to being a man, or from being a girl into being a woman. It is when your body will begin developing, largely based on your hormones. So Donnie said when you're maturing. Mike says when you start to become a man. All right, yeah, those are all great definitions. So it is the changes your body is making as you become an adult, and they are largely fueled by hormones. Now, my next question is, what are hormones? But I'll just give you the answer on that one. Hormones are kind of like your body's chemical messengers. When one part of your body needs another part of your body to start doing something, it can release, which will then direct that part of your body to make the changes. So the big changes in puberty start in a part of your brain called the hypothalamus. That then tells another part of your brain called the pituitary gland to tell your gonads to start producing more hormones. Now, that is a silly word that everybody laughs at when I use it, but gonad is the proper scientific term for the hormone, for the parts of your body that are involved in this part of your body. Oh, it says I got stuck. Am I better, Nikki? Hope so. My face looks like it's moving to me.
You're good. You had a quick freeze, Alex, but you were back in before I could even tell you.
Okay, good. So the gonads in the male body are the testes, and the gonads in the female body are the ovaries, and they will begin to produce many of your puberty hormones. Now, for the male body, the most important hormone is testosterone. As you begin to approach puberty, your body will start producing testosterone in much greater quantities. And testosterone has a ton of effects on your body that we will get into now. So, how will testosterone affect you? Big one, like we were just talking about, is hair growth. You might start growing hair on your face, your chest, your arms, your back, your pelvic region. You might start having hair in all sorts of places that you didn't before. And that is perfectly fine, perfectly natural. In fact, for some men, they will start losing hair during puberty and as they get older. That testosterone can cause what is called a male pattern baldness. So you might start gaining hair other parts of your body, but then losing hair on top of your head. So that definitely can happen. You may notice that your voice is starting to get deeper. You're getting a little more resonant. And on the way to your voice getting deep, it might crack sometimes. You might get voice cracks as your voice is starting to get deeper. Basically, what's happening is the testosterone is letting your larynx and vocal cords, which are responsible for your voice, when you're young, they're kind of small. And as you get older, they're getting bigger and bigger and deeper. In that in-between phase, it might be a little cracky. That's real. Chandler says his dad is bald. That's true. Sometimes men go bald as they get older. All that hair from the top of your head ends up somewhere else. Nikki, thank you for telling me I am funny. I appreciate it. Zach wants to know why girls don't have voice cracking. So Zach, this is a huge part of puberty, is that men kind of go one way and women kind of go the other way. When women have puberty, they have different changes in their body, but a lot less of it is located in their voice because they produce less testosterone. Women produce different growth hormones. I believe estrogen and progesterone are the most important to their development, and it just doesn't affect their body the same way it affects a guy's. Alex, you said my voice sounds like a mouse, yeah? Or Donnie said that about me because I am Alex. Thank you, Donnie. So yes, you are dimorphic between men and women. That means they are different as they mature. Acne, we talked about this one. Got to start washing your face maybe once, maybe twice a day with an actual specifically designed face soap. You may notice that you're growing more taller and more muscular. Growth spurts are huge around adolescence. When I was about 11, I was one of the shorter guys in my class, and then all of a sudden I was the tallest kid in my class by the time I was 15. So you may notice that you're suddenly growing taller and a lot more muscular. Testosterone aids in the development of muscle. But there are also behavioral changes that come with testosterone, which might be hidden by my slide thing here. Let's get it out of the way. So you may see increased aggression, competitiveness, and increased self-esteem from testosterone. So that is definitely behavioral. There is a part of testosterone and a part of growing up as a young man where all of a sudden you may want to do nothing but compete with all the other young men that you're around. That's completely natural. So is that increased aggression. But it is important to know that that is just a chemical and you cannot let it control you. Those angry, angsty teen boy feelings, you can learn to control them. Mood swings, yeah, Nikki. You may start feeling different ways about things, and being moody is just kind of part of being teenage. But it's not your fault. It's chemistry and it's biology. And at your age, you just kind of got to ride it out. However, none of these things might not be happening to you right now. They might not happen to you later in life. You may be thinking to yourself, why aren't these things happening to me? Why does my voice still seem high? Why am I still short? Why am I not developing hair other places? There is no true normal when it comes to puberty. You will grow at your own age and in your own order. Things might happen to you in different orders than your friends, and that's completely okay. That's a big part of that puberty angst, is why is this not exactly the way it's happening to my friends? And if you're really nervous about it, you should find someone to talk to. And that brings us to the question, who can you talk to? Puberty can be awkward to talk about, so who are you going to go to? Your parents, obviously. Now, you might not want to talk to your parents because puberty is, like I said, kind of awkward, but your parents have both gone through it. They're both adults, so they might have good advice. Now, your friends. Usually, it makes sense to go to your friends. But in this case, I say maybe don't go to your friends because they're in the same boat you are. They have no more experience. They have no more wisdom. All they have is what their body is going through, which might be very, very different from what your body is going through. So yes, you can get together and you can commiserate about it. You can all talk about, oh, this is what's going on with me. This is what's going on with you. But don't expect your friends to have all the answers because they might be just as confused as you are. A doctor would be a great person to talk to. Next time you're on your yearly wellness checkup, if you need to go to the doctor for something else and you don't want to talk about this in front of your parents, you could say, do you mind if I talk to the doctor alone? And the doctor will be more than happy to answer any questions about anything you might have. Same thing goes for your school nurse. Your school nurse is a wealth of knowledge that can help to answer all these questions you might have. Puberty is one of the strangest parts of life, but it's also incredibly interesting. You're growing into the man and the adult that you will one day be. And that means that there might be some growing pains. So definitely find someone to talk to about it. Social changes. Things are definitely changing again. And we're going to kind of go over some of the stuff we talked about last time about getting into a new group of friends. So let's say we have a group on one side of the room and they're all talking about the same thing. Let's say that they are all in the same extracurricular. Let's say they all do theater. I did theater in high school, so I have a good example to talk about it. You want to get into it, but you don't know how. As you get into high school, a lot of these things are decided by the classes that you pick. So at the end of the school year, you'll usually have the opportunity to choose your classes for the next school year. If you want to get into theater, get into drama, get into the drama kids, you should probably put drama on your schedule. Or if you want to get to the guys that are doing weightlifting or sports, computer science, any of the extracurriculars, joining those classes can be a huge help. You can also research what they're into. If they're all talking about the same video games, you can learn about that video game to help get into that conversation. Same goes to popular TV shows and books. I think Nikki's saying choir. Choir is another great place to meet friends. I was in men's chorus when I was in high school, and I met a lot of friends that I keep in touch with to this day. So that is a great one, Nikki. Zach says band. Totally, Zach. That is a great hobby activity. And just like I said last time, play it cool when you're approaching these new groups. Just because you've Googled all about, I don't know if the cool kids still play Fortnite these days, but just because you know about it doesn't mean you can walk up and say, hey, I know all these things too. Can I start to be your friend now? Play it cool when you're making those introductions. Here's another couple great group settings to make new friends. After you find something that interests you, you could get into sports like wrestling, judo, or goalball. We talked about choir, we talked about drama, we talked about art, all sorts of opportunities in high school to find an interest and then find other guys that are also interested in that same thing. Chandler wants to know, how does it look when you play it cool? That's an interesting question, Chandler. When I say play it cool, I don't mean you need to walk up and be like, hey, fellas, how things going over here, and try and use a bunch of crazy lingo or be something you aren't. When I say play it cool, I mean just be natural. Say, hey guys, I heard you were talking about Fortnite. I was playing recently and I had this crazy thing happen where yada, 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 yada. Just be natural, be yourself. Don't feel like you need to put extra on just to impress them startup. So that's what I mean when I say play it cool. Good question. Who can you talk to about what other people are interested to try and get into those friend groups? So your siblings are probably a good place there, especially if they're around you in age. They probably know what people are talking about. Your school counselor should probably try and keep their finger on the pulse of modern youth culture so they can give you some advice. Other boys,
Alex?
even if they're not, yes.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I was looking for a spot. We have a hand up from Isabel. Isabel is a regular. I have given her permission to talk. So go ahead, Isabel, and unmute when you are ready.
What is judo?
Okay, so judo is a martial art. So it is a fighting style. It is primarily a grappling and throwing fighting style. So instead of punches and kicks, it is about grabbing, throwing, and then grappling your opponent. It is a great visual impairment for martial arts because you're already in complete contact with your opponent at the start of the match. So it's not like you'll miss a punch coming in. You can feel the movement of your opponent and use that weight for your attacks and defense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good. That was a great question. I should have specified before. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so we talked about your sibling, counselor, other boys, and your O&M teacher. Let's say you want to get in with the theater kids, but you've never spent any time in the theater. You can ask your O&M to help give you a preview of that environment. Maybe.
Oh, hey everyone, this is Robin. Alex has frozen. We are, oh, there he is. He's back. This time he knew he froze. So we heard you telling us about talking with your O&M instructor, and that's when you froze again.
Okay, so say that you, it says my internet connection is unstable now. I'm gonna wait just 1 second. All right, now I'm gonna go. So let's say you wanted to meet the theater kids, but you don't know how the theater is laid out. You can ask your O&M instructor to guide you, give you some introduction to the theater space, maybe also the drama classroom and the shop, so you can feel confident in that new environment when you're trying to make those new friends. Okay, moving on. What is going to change about friendships? So remember, we were talking about testosterone, and we were talking about the behavior changes you may notice. Well, you're not the only one feeling them. Your friends may feel that same increased aggression and competitiveness, and it may come out in distinctly unfriendly ways. Maybe that guy that you always had a nice, calm friendship with, maybe now he's much more competitive. Maybe he's putting you down more as a way to put himself higher socially. That is also part of this testosterone aggression that we can start to see. So how could this affect your friendships? Increased aggressiveness and competitiveness. How could that affect your friendships? Zach says they all want to win too. Absolutely. And when you all want to win and only one person can win, that can definitely put stress on friendships. But that also can be something that pulls you together. Some of my best friends in high school, I would say that our closest bond was our competitiveness. We were always competing with each other, but we understood that and we knew that about each other. So it never became too aggressive. It never became a problem. So having good communication up front can help keep that under control. Nikki says your friends might not want to talk to you. Absolutely. They're having these same angsty teenage feelings and maybe they don't want to talk right now. That's definitely real. You may notice that schoolwork and extracurricular activities are filling up a lot more of your time and your friends' time. So you might not be able to hang out and just relax as much as you used to before. As you get older, school typically gets harder, and maybe you found something that you're very passionate about. Like in high school, like I said, I did theater. Theater took a lot of my time. So my friends that weren't in theater, I didn't get to see them nearly as much. Relationships may also take a lot more time. That's what we're getting into next. We are now on date boot camp, ladies and gentlemen. Date boot camp for the young man. As you get older, people begin to have more serious relationships. The words boyfriend and girlfriend start to mean a lot more to people. And since you're growing older and more independent, you might even go on dates. But how? Dates are not as simple as some people make them to believe. So we're going to go over a few things we can go to help you understand how to plan and execute a successful date. So let's say you have found the person you want to ask on a date. That person interests you, you think they're cool, you want to hang out with them more, and you don't want to just be friends, you want to have a date. I have no problem with saying that asking people on dates can be downright terrifying. Maybe the scariest thing you've done in your life up to that point, because there is that option for rejection. And like we talked about last time, rejection does not feel very good. First advice is try and stay relaxed. Now, I know that that is way easier said than done. You can't just say, you know, I think I'll be relaxed now and then not be nervous anymore. Unfortunately, that is not how it works. But remember that that other person might be just as nervous as you are. Try to be relaxed. Okay, Chandler said that asking a girl out is way scary. Chandler, I could not agree more. Zach says he isn't sure if he ever wants to date, ever. Zach, that's cool. It's your life. If you don't want to go on dates, don't. And that's, I promise I'm not being sarcastic or oversimplistic. If it's not something you think that will make you happy, don't do it, and be happy with what does make you happy. So when you're asking that person on the date, be upfront and be specific, because there's a big difference between going on a date and just hanging out with someone. I could hang out with a bunch of people, but you typically are only going on dates with one person. So when you're asking that person, understand the difference between saying, would you like to go on a date with me, and saying, would you want to hang out sometimes? Because those could have different weight to them. Last big piece of advice is take no for an answer. If that person says no, that's it. Nobody owes you their time. Just because you're interested with them doesn't mean that they have to be interested in you, or even that they have to go on a date with you. I think there is an unfortunate trend in movies and TV shows that teach young men that if the person you ask on a date says no, that just means you need to start trying harder. You need to bring flowers and have big romantic gestures. But a lot of times after that first no, if you keep trying, it's just going to come off as creepy. And that's not what you're trying to do. Chandler says he hears a lot of people talk about group dates. Is that easier? Well, yes and no, I would say, Chandler. Yes, in that it takes the pressure off you. When you're on a one-on-one date, that means all the date needs to be coming from you or from that other person. In a group setting, it takes a lot of that pressure off. So it might be a little bit easier. Now, the harder part is you have to find a group of people to go on the date with you, or a bunch of people all going on dates, which might be hard to coordinate. Mike asks, what is a double date? So a double date, Mike, is when you and the person you're going on a date with are hanging out with two people who are also on a date. So let's say you and your girlfriend are hanging out with another boyfriend girlfriend set. So that's a double date. I don't think those are very common in high school, but they certainly could be. All right, so we talked about staying relaxed, being upfront and specific, and taking no for an answer. Let's keep on going. Where do you go? So the person said yes. You said, would you like to go on a date with me? And they said yes. Great work. You have done the hardest part of the date by far. So where are you going to go? I'm going to list off a couple ideas on some good date ideas. And if you have some good date ideas back home, feel free to put them on the chat and I will read those out too. So these are a couple classic high school date options. We've got the park. We have restaurants. You could see a movie. You could go bowling. You could go to a museum. You could get ice cream, or you could just do whatever you think that person will like. Just because you like bowling doesn't mean the person you want to ask on a date will also like to go bowling. So kind of customizing it towards that person is a good idea. Anybody back home have any good date ideas? So Nikki said to a beach. Totally, Nikki. I'd say that is dependent on where you are in the country. If you live in Nebraska, that could be a pretty far drive to the beach. So, but if you're on the coast, the beach might be a great idea. Chandler says the school dance. Sure. That is a classic dance. Zach says to football games. Yeah, so sporting events are a great date activity, especially if you and your date are both interested. Chandler said he took a girl to homecoming once. It might be easier to go on a few dates before that, so you're comfortable with the person before the date. But if that's your move, that's your move. Nikki said to a band concert. Totally. Concert dates are a ton of fun. Now, a big side note for this right now is that COVID may make these things a lot harder. There's not a lot of concerts available right now. Restaurant situations are very different depending on what state you're in. So this is probably the first time teachers need to say this, but make sure that there are no global pandemics interfering with your dates. Take appropriate precautions there. All right, now that you have selected the location you're going to go on your date with, what are things you can do to prepare yourself for that date? You can scout the location. So let's say you've chosen the park. You're going to go on that first date to the park. You can go to that park with your parents. You could ask your O&M teacher to take you, just so you can preview that area beforehand. Take a couple laps around the park so there's nothing there that will surprise you or that you might be unprepared for. Let's say you know that as a traveler, sometimes you don't notice, let's say, decreases in elevation like a staircase. If you walk that route on the park a couple times, you'll have an idea of where those staircases are, so they won't surprise you. So route and location scouting can be super important. And that even goes for somewhere like a restaurant. Maybe you decided you're going to go to that restaurant down the street on your date. Try and go a few days before so you can learn the restaurant first. Learn how the tables are set up, learn where the bathroom is, learn where the hostess stand is. Go into that building as prepared as you can possibly be. And if it's a restaurant, go ahead and preview the menu before you go too. Maybe you are nervous about using your excessive technology on your first date. So you don't want to pull out your phone to zoom in on the menu, or you don't want to ask the waiter to read it for you. Preview that menu before you go, so you already know what you're going to order. So you don't even have to worry about that. Maybe you even want to reserve a particular table before the date, a table that you know the location of, especially if it's in relation to other parts of the restaurant. So you go to the restaurant beforehand, find a table you like, make a reservation, and that would give you a strong advantage beforehand. You also might want to think about things to talk about. And I know that might sound silly. Of course, you know what to talk about, but all of a sudden you're on that first date and all your interests and your passions and things you like to talk about suddenly leave your mind. So it is okay to prepare a few topics ahead in case conversation starts to run dry. I'm not saying that you want to prepare a full script, but having a few ideas going into it can help. Donnie asked, do restaurants have large print menus? So Donnie, sometimes, not all the time. It is very dependent on the restaurant. And that is something that you can scout ahead first. You could go to that restaurant a week before your date and say, do you have large print restaurants? So you won't be surprised when it actually happens on the date. So that is absolutely a case-by-case basis. Chandler says that a lot of places are using QR codes right now. That is very true, Chandler. Because of COVID, a lot of restaurants aren't using normal menus. They're using a QR code that you scan with your phone, and then that pulls up the menu on your phone. So you might want to practice using QR codes before that date. So Donnie, a QR code, it's sort of like a small black and white box printed on something with a bunch of other black and white patterns inside of it. You can hold up your phone to it. Your phone can then read the code in the box, and it will take you to a specified link. In this case, that link will be the menu of the restaurant. So that's a QR code. Chandler has an app that is a QR code reader. So yes, you'd use an app on your phone. Usually just your default camera can do it. It is possible to make them raised and tactile, but not many people have thought to do that. So Zach said that it is possible for restaurants to have tactile and raised menus, but just not many restaurants do. So it's absolutely worth checking on the menu situation before you go to the restaurant so you're not surprised.
Alex,
okay.
We have
Yes.
another hand that is no longer there. So I just wanted to tell you that you're doing a great job. So
Thank you so much,
keep
Robin.
on going on, Alex. Back to you.
Whoever had that hand, if you change your mind and you want to ask that question again, please feel free to bring it on back.
The hand is up.
So,
There is
hand
a
is up.
hand. We did find
Deploy
the
the
hand.
hand.
We have given permission to speak. All right, go ahead. The person who's identified as Cindy.
Oh, sorry. My name's Joshua. This is my first time here, but thank
What's up,
you.
Josh?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a question. What is the difference between a QR code and a barcode, or are they the same thing?
So a barcode is usually used at like a grocery store, and it is specifically plugged into that store's inventory system. So you get your can of soup off the rack, you scan it, and then that tells the person at the checkout how much it costs. So it is very specific to that barcode is just for that can of soup. Whereas a QR code is customizable, and it usually takes you to a link when it's scanned on your phone. So you scan it, it'll bring you to the website that has the menu. So the big thing is that a barcode usually refers to a specific object in a specific environment, and a QR code can lead you to anywhere.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, good question. I also see something in the chat. Can you get a QR code on an iPad? Yes, you could use an iPad to read a QR code. Donnie. iPhone and iPad cameras will not automatically recognize a QR code, or will always automatically recognize a QR code. Android does not always. That is a good clarification for whoever you are currently asking that question for. I have an Android phone, and my Android does currently read QR codes. But enough about QR codes. Let's get back to our date. So what can you do to prepare your personal maintenance for your date? So let's go back to our personal maintenance topics. These are our must-haves, no negotiation, no argument, absolute must-have. Shower, shave, deodorant, nice clothes. Are you showered? Are you smelling good? Are you shaved? Either are you shaved completely clean, or have you shaved your facial hair into something clean and sharp, like a well-defined mustache or beard? Again, deodorant, no negotiation on that. If you're going on a date, wear deodorant. And are your clothes nice? That doesn't mean you need to wear super fancy clothes. You don't have to go on your date in a tuxedo. But are your clothes clean, and do they match? And are they appropriate to the environment? Jeans and a t-shirt might make sense at the park, but they will not make sense at a nice restaurant. So that is important. And there are a few optional things you could consider as well, like cologne. Does everybody know what cologne is? Go ahead and put in the chat. What is cologne? Nikki says perfume, pretty close. Yeah, pretty much the only difference between perfume and cologne, Nikki, is that men call their perfume cologne and women call their cologne perfume. Just good smelling stuff. Chandler says it makes you smell good, but doesn't use a lot. I was just about to get to that, Chandler. Absolutely. Zach says smelly stuff, pretty much. Donnie said aftershave, Polo. So Polo is a particular brand of aftershave. Chandler says he used Axe body spray once and did way too much and he stunk. So yes, cologne, this is a huge and important piece of advice to keep with you your entire life. A little goes a long way. Too much cologne and everyone in a 15-foot radius around you will be able to smell you. And it can be overpowering. So just a little bit of cologne goes a long way. The way I personally use cologne is I'll do one small spray on my wrist, wipe it on my other wrist, and then wipe it on my neck. And that'll usually be plenty. What about bringing flowers or a gift on your first date? Sometimes. This one will kind of go with you. You don't want to show up with too much. Like if you showed up on a first date with a gift of a brand new iPhone, that would probably be a little bit too much for your first date, but maybe some flowers or chocolates or something small could be appropriate. They're not absolutely required. That's kind of a case-by-case basis. So in preparation for this lesson today, I asked a few of my students what they thought you might need to have on a date. And a lot of my students said hair gel, that you have to have hair gel in if you're going to go on a date. No, you don't. If the hair gel doesn't make sense for your hair, it might not be appropriate. And I have found that young men, especially that haven't used hair gel much, might use way too much. And then your hair is this rock hard block on top of your head, and it shows that you may have used too much hair gel. So if you want to use something like that, practice before the day of the first date so you understand how much is appropriate for your hair. Practice, practice, practice. For example, if you're in that nice clothes, another example of practice, if you're going to wear something like a tie, practice tying your tie before that date, so you're not rushing to get it done right before. Some O&M skills for the date. How are your cane skills? Especially if you're on a date with someone who is unfamiliar with people with visual impairments. You want to make sure that your cane skills are absolutely sharp. So this person on your date that you're on a date with understands that you are an independent adult who, although you travel in a different way than your date might, are still completely capable of getting around on your own. So get those cane skills razor sharp, mirror shine before it's time for that date. Are you familiar with using rideshare services like Uber or Lyft? So a lot of you will probably not be driving. So how are you going to get to your date? You probably don't want your mom and dad dropping you off on your date. It's not quite as independent as you might be going for. So you might want to be proficient with using Uber or Lyft. That way you could still pick up your date even though you're not actually driving them yourself. Donnie, you said you don't have a cane? All right, Donnie. That is all right for you. Instead of cane skills, how are your indoor navigation skills? How confident are you getting around in a busy, maybe darkly lit restaurant? So even if you don't have cane skills, there are definitely still travel skills you can sharpen up. Maybe public transportation instead of a rideshare service, like the bus, if your town has a subway or light rail system. Can you use public transportation to get to and from your date? And can you find solid landmarks to meet up? Let's say you're going to go on your date right after high school and you're going to meet with your date at the flagpole. Do you know how to get to your flagpole? Do you know how to choose a good landmark to meet up with your date? That's definitely important. Nikki asked, what if your campus is not working? So I assume what you mean by that, Nikki, is if you're currently virtual. If you're currently virtual, then there is probably many things that would make getting a first date easy, since you probably don't have a lot of opportunity to speak openly with your peers. COVID has made a lot of things very difficult, and I'm sure that it has made dating difficult too. Zach says that he talks to his friend on Discord. Yeah, Discord. I use Discord too. So maybe you could talk to your potential date on Discord, which is a computer chat software. You could do text chat, you could do voice chat, or you could do video chat on Discord. And it's definitely becoming popular. Those are a couple O&M skills that can help you on your date. Here is our final note on the subject of dates. And that is that not all dates go well. You may find that you are not as into that person as you thought, and your date might find they're not that into you. And that's okay. That's kind of what dates are there for. Just because you're going on a date with someone because you've asked someone on a date doesn't mean that you want to marry that person. A date is really just a good way to get to know a person a little bit better. Maybe you just knew them as friends in school, and now you're trying to become more comfortable with that person one-on-one. And in that process, you might find, I'm not that attracted to this person, or I don't like what they said about these things or those things. And they might find the same things about you. And that is okay. Don't let one bad date keep you down. Just because that date with that person wasn't successful doesn't mean every other date you'll have in your life will be unsuccessful. If that person doesn't want to have a second date, respect that. Like I said earlier, there's a trend in movies and TVs that if someone is not into you, you can make them like you. You can make them be attracted to you with romantic gestures and sharing your feelings. And that is not the case. If someone's not into you, that might mean they're just not into you. You got to accept that. Many gamers use Discord. Totally. Donnie, you want to marry someone? All right. Donnie is older, so that is okay. But Donnie, just because you want to marry someone doesn't mean you should marry the first person you go on a date with. Using those dates to find out if that person is someone you could marry down the line is a better strategy. All right, who can you talk to about these things? First and foremost, like almost everything else, your parents. And few things in life are as awkward as talking about girls with your mom and dad, but they probably have some good advice. You could also probably talk to your friends and your siblings, remembering those things we talked about earlier. Your friends might not know anything more than you do on this subject, and your siblings might not always be the most dependable advice givers. Becoming a man is not easy. Plain and simple, up and down, left and right. It is a complicated path, and those flood of hormones we talked about doesn't make things any easier. And the single most important thing we've learned here, or at least that I've hoped you've learned here, is that you should talk to someone about it. The highest group of suicide in the United States is young men. And a large trend of that is because young men believe that they're not allowed to talk about their feelings. They have to be tough. They have to be strong. They have to be unyielding. And they keep all that in, and it really, really hurts them. Talking to someone isn't weak. It isn't unmanly. If anything, it is smart. It is tactical. You cannot be the best man you can be if you are holding in the things that make you feel worse. Finding someone that is going through what you're going through or has gone what you are going through now is huge. So let's talk about some things that might make you feel bad. You may have feelings for someone who doesn't feel the same way about you, and that stinks. It sucks. It hurts. It makes you feel like you might be less than that person. Why don't they like me? There's all these reasons. School is getting harder and harder and harder as you're getting older. Maybe you're in AP classes and you're having to prepare for college. The future can seem so close, and there feels like there's so much pressure on you in high school to be super, super successful. You might be tired of being visually impaired. Your friends have started driving recently, and maybe you won't be able to drive. And that might make you angry. It might make you sad. That's okay. And you may feel like you have to be something you're not. There is a huge thing in the United States for young men all have to be the same way. You have to be into sports. You have to start going on dates. You have to be tough. You can't cry anymore because now you're becoming a man. But that's not the case. The most important thing for you to be is not what everybody else wants you to be. It's to be who you are, to be authentic about that. Donnie said you're tired of being VI. Let it out, Donnie. That's all right, man. It's hard. There's a lot of extra stuff that you got to think about. And just having those negative feelings is completely natural and all right. And you're doing what I asked and you're talking about that. And I appreciate it. And I hope you have someone in your life, Donnie, that you can really go into detail about it, because letting all that out feels good. Nikki, don't like being VI. Let it all out. Tell us how you really feel. You may also feel like you're being left behind. So this kind of goes back to that puberty conversation you were talking about. You may feel like all my friends are getting taller and they can all grow facial hair and they all have such deep voices, or all they want to talk about is girls. All they want to talk about is sports. And you feel like they're suddenly growing and changing and you're still in the same place. And again, that's okay. Hormones and puberty, it's all completely dependent on your body, the speed at which you develop. Donnie, you have me in your life. Thanks, Donnie. I appreciate that, man. But we don't have a lot of time to just talk one-on-one, you know, Donnie. So maybe someone else closer to your life that you can talk to privately instead of in front of all of our participants. All right. So what can we do about these feelings? This may come as a shock and surprise you, but you can talk to someone. You can let it out. Never fight these fights alone. I promise you are not the first teenage boy or girl becoming a man, becoming a woman to have these feelings. So find somebody else who has had them or is having them and share. Let it out. You can research local groups for people with visual impairments. There are tons of opportunities for folks with visual impairments to meet other folks with visual impairments, because other people just might not understand the same things that you're going through. Your completely sighted peers just won't be able to understand those things. So having someone who's gone exactly what you've gone through can be huge. There are lighthouses. There are tons of summer camp opportunities. I think I just saw Chandler mention something about, Chandler says he loves blind camps. Totally, man. Campabilities, those are all over the countries where you can meet a bunch of other kids who are probably going through similar stuff you're going through. Chandler goes to campabilities every year and is now a counselor in training. Ah, good old CIT. Good for you, Chandler. Moving through the ranks. Another thing you can do is relax. Make time just to be happy. With school, with relationships, with friends, with extracurriculars, it's easy to become overstressed and overloaded. So take that time just to do something that makes you happy. Play video games, go on a hike, go on a walk. Whatever makes you happy, take times to do it. Nikki, you can hear bird sounds. Totally, Nikki, just sitting outside listening to the birds. That's a great way to relax. I do that myself. Donnie, I don't think I understand what you mean. Is campabilities DE? Oh, in Delaware. Okay, I see. That's what you mean. I don't know the abbreviation for Delaware, apparently. Yeah, campabilities, totally. And then the last thing you can do is talk to someone. I've got to sound like a broken record at this point, but there are a few things more you can do more effective from your mental health than just letting it out. Now we come to the last slide that we ended with last time. What is a man? Open-ended question. Put it in the chat. What is a man? Nikki, a male gender, yeah. Zach says an adult, totally. Chandler says it's whatever you want to be. Ah, great answer, Chandler. Beat me to it. Of course, the simple definition is that a man is an adult male human. kind of what we were talking about earlier, there are so many boxes that society puts a man into. They'll tell you that a man has to be tough. A man has to think about girls all the time. A man has to love sports. A man can't cry. A man can't share his feelings. A man has to know how to work on cars. A man has to da 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 da. None of it means anything if it's not who you really are, if it's not what makes you really happy. Okay, we covered a lot of ground today, and I wanted to leave a couple minutes at the end for any questions about any of the things we might have talked about before. So if you have any questions about personal maintenance, puberty, going on dates, O&M skills, social changes, now's the time to put those in the chat. Donnie, am I going to be back on? I think I am scheduled in May, Donnie. And for that, the next time I'm on, Donnie, I'm going to try and have a few college-aged, visually impaired boys, men, I guess, on. So you'll have some guys on that have been through it. So they'll be able to answer those questions too. So it won't be just me. It'll be people who have been through what you're going through and have been through. Chandler wants to know how to recover from an embarrassing situation. Chandler, let me tell you, I've been through plenty of these in my life. In my experience, the best way to play off an embarrassing situation is to also laugh about it. So let's say you're walking down, a classic embarrassing situation, tripping in front of a group. So you've tripped, you've fallen on the ground, people are laughing. What do? My classic move is then when you're laying on the ground after you've tripped is you strike a funny pose, like you did it on purpose. Go with it, roll with the embarrassment. Right now, everybody's laughing at you. What if instead they were laughing with you? So try and roll with the funny of the situation. Now, that doesn't mean you can always do that. Let's say the embarrassment is, let's go back to our dates. You ask someone on a date, they say no, a bunch of people hear it, and then you feel embarrassed. That probably is not a situation where you can laugh along with it. In that situation, maybe it's just best to leave wherever you are. Go take some time to yourself, take a couple deep breaths, let yourself feel that embarrassment and work through it. So that was a great question. Zach says safe, like in baseball. So yeah, when he trips, Zach says safe, like he slid into a base on baseball. That's a good one. Nikki said she laughed a lot. Yeah, laugh it off. It's harder to get too embarrassed if you don't take yourself too seriously. That's my general strategy on the subject. All right, we got about 2 more minutes. Any other questions about anything we've talked about? All right, well then, thank you all so much for coming to my session today. It has been a pleasure. And I look forward to hearing about the young men you all become.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. That was fabulous. Great to have all our friends join us today. Now, tomorrow, in some ways, we're feeding off of your session. Our next session tomorrow is Dress for Success. And you were talking about dress and how you might want to look nice for a date. Well, you also want to look nice for a job. And so there's some of those things that kind of go hand in hand. So hopefully you will come and join us again to learn about how to dress for success. And Alex, I'm so glad we will see you again later in the spring. Have a
Looking forward to
great
it.
day.
You too. You guys have a good one.